Hello, welcome back to Aetheral Space 14.19, A World of Brimstone. We are back.
Ooh, it's like hell, right? Hell's made of
Yeah.
brimstone. Is brimstone a real material?
I don't know.
What is it? Can describe.
Does
brimstone.
anyone, even know what it is?
Does anyone even know? I just imagine it as...
It's an alternative name for sulfur, okay?
Okay.
That's because
There
it's
we go.
hot.
Brimstone. I got you. You ready?
Yeah.
What was his voice again?
It was like this.
Sorry, Nain smiled. I don't want to see the full moon rise tonight. He attacked. This was not a warning shot or a strike intended to torment. With the gentlest smile on his face, the man called Nain intended to butcher, to mutilate, to kill. Even if it had been anything else, though, Ruth would have moved just the same. The malevolence that washed over her was just that strong. Direwolf set! Nain raised his hand fast as lightning, the white sphere of Ahura Mazda already stretching out open before his palm. As Ruth rushed forward, ready to block, black aether hissed, and a dark blade and chain launched forth from the singularity, aimed squarely for Mariloko's throat. Sparks flew as Ruth reached him first, deflecting the blow with a slash of her claws. Unchained! Mariloko would not let this man, whoever he was, get another chance like that. Without hesitation, he unleashed a zone of crushing gravity right where the fiend was standing, and he kept unleashing it, again and again, as the man evaded through the hangar as a black blur. Circular craters appeared in the enemy's wake as if he were being pursued by an invisible giant. His name is Nain, the clawed woman said, dropping down to the ground next to him. I don't know who he is exactly, but he's nuts. Nain. The name rang familiar. Wasn't there a tradition in the UAP with the same name? Mariloko was fairly sure he'd crashed, or rather crushed, one of those once. He'd do the same this time. As the dark blur ran across the wall, closing the distance between them, Mariloko raised a lethal finger. Unworthy! Pellets of lethal gravity were fired from his finger again and again, each time accompanied by a flash of purple aether like a gun going off. The enemy weaved across the wall, avoiding the shots, but Mariloko's efforts were at least slowing down. Mariloko's efforts are slowing him down.
Yeah.
How come, it's funny to me, anytime there's a scene like this, the characters never have hit scan. They're always a little behind.
Because the guy's fast.
Adjust for the bullet travel, brother. Aim ahead.
He's dodging them.
The rest of you, he grunted, even as he continued firing. To the ship! Musazi's head snapped up to look at him. But, Mariloko glanced down, if you don't make it, everything was pointless. He took a deep breath. You still need to make it kinder, don't you? A kinder world than this. The look in Musazi's eyes hardened, and he nodded with resolve. Morgan by his side, he made a run for the ship, a protective radiant already ignited in his hand. Rufus followed after the pair, carrying Aguta and the Delsets. Despite his better will, Musazi glanced back. He still didn't quite understand why Mariloko had come to his aid, but for some reason the notion of leaving him behind felt like acid in his throat. Ruth Blaine had stopped for a moment to pick Anatrice Delsed back up from the floor, and as she passed Mariloko she planted a hand against his arm. He glared at her. What? Direwolf set! The armor vanished from Ruth's body and manifested over Mariloko's frame instead. It didn't quite look the same. Stretched and warped by his wide frame, it was more a lion than a wolf, but it would provide the same benefits in terms of strength and speed. She nodded up at him. I've fought him before, she said. Good luck. Mariloko snorted. Fine. Oh? Nain said. Is it really okay for you to have such a long chat? In an instant, Nain had crossed the distance between himself and Mariloko, exercising speed previously unseen. He swiped Angra Mainyu through the air. Is it Mainyu or Mainyu?
Manu.
Angra Mainyu through the air at Mariloko's head, and it was only the enhanced agility of the direwolf set that let the burly man duck to avoid the blow. Still flying through the air, Nain whipped out a black blade and thrust it towards Ruth's face. Unchained! But gravity, suddenly reoriented, pulled him away from her. As he was slowed down for a moment by the reorientation, Ruth finally got a good look at him, and she understood why his speed had suddenly increased. Wings. A pair of black leather wings now protruded from Nain's back, propelling him through the air like a ricocheting bullet as he avoided Mariloko's devastating attacks. Ruth focused in on him further as he moved. It wasn't that he had wings, she realized. The wings belonged to a spider-like creature clinging to Nain's back, serving as a biological flight harness. Ruth was starting to get an idea of this freak's abilities. That black hole, Angra Mainyu, completely erased whatever it made contact with. Even infusion didn't seem to provide too much protection against it. If that thing so much as brushed against a vital spot, you were probably done. The white hole, Ahura Mazda, on the other hand, seemed to let Nain create weapons and creatures. What was the limit on what he could create? There had to be one, but Ruth couldn't figure it out. Go, Mariloco said, his frown deepening as he continued to attack the flickering Nyane. I'll Ahura Mazda. The room was filled with locusts in an instant, the swarm so thick and so fast that it looked for all the world like they were surrounded by a dancing black mist. The roof was slowly opening up to allow the ship to take off, and more than a few locusts flew up like smoke to taste the night air. With a roar, Mariloco projected a repulsive unchained around him and Ruth, keeping the insects at a distance, but that wasn't something he'd be able to keep up forever. Nor would Nyane let them. Using the insects as a smokescreen, Nyane moved low, circling the area of Unchained before launching himself right at Ruth's back with pinpoint infusion. She whirled around, preparing to protect herself and Anatrice with noblesse, but she knew before the first spark of red aether flew that it wasn't fast enough. This was it. She was about to feel Angramain's kiss. Bastard-born! Or not. A beam of orange flame lanced out from the boarding ramp, scorching a path through the horde of locusts and slamming right into Nyane's side. For the first time, Ruth heard pain from the pale man, just a sharp intake of breath, but still enough to be satisfying. He went flying, pushed further by the beam as Rufus continued to unleash it. Nebula 5 marched out of the starship, holding his shield high. He'd returned after dropping off his 2 passengers, and now he continued to unleash the beam against Nyane even as it slowly weakened. The residual heat was enough to ignite any of the locusts that came close, leaving Rufus unmolested as he advanced. Hell, Ruth was pretty sure she could see thin trails of smoke coming from the corners of his eyebrows. Who's talking? Rufus?
Yeah.
Get moving! He hissed, steam escaping from between his lips. Ruth didn't need to be told twice. Adjusting Anatrice's position in her arms, she ran for the ship, red aether coursing through her prosthetic legs. Nyane was being pressed against the far wall by Rufus's beam of heat, and a moment later that effort was joined by Mariloco's Unchained. As a crater slowly pressed its way to the wall, they're doing the Gojo to fucking Hanami. And Nyane's form was barely visible beneath the orange flames and purple sparks. Ruth finally turned her head away. This was their best chance. Only, bang! The first shot thudded into Mariloco's back, slipping between 2 direwolf plates and sending him down onto the ground for a moment. Bang! The second shot would have blasted Rufus's head clean off if he hadn't swung around as he saw Mariloco fall. Instead, the bullet slammed into his shield. Ordinarily, the shield could have taken nearly anything an enemy had to offer. But the night had been long and the night had been hard, and so the shield slipped from Rufus's weakened grip and flew across the room. 4,000 meters away, McCoy calmly reloaded. Perched on a skyscraper. Jesus Christ, that's quite a shot distance, Tan.
I did check what the world record was and made it slightly longer.
Nice. Perched on a skyscraper far outside of Grip District, she'd held a sniper rifle of decaying flesh and bone, nearly 3 times her size, with the open jaws of a skull serving as the tip of the gun's barrel. Quite a few demises had gone into this corpse construct. What's a demise?
A death?
Oh. Quite a few demises had gone into this corpse construct, but the results had been worth it. Neither of her attacks had been kill shots, true, but they'd sufficed to eliminate the immediate threat to Nyane's life. Then again, an immediate threat to that man's life? Such a thing did not exist. The very notion made McCoy wish her lips were still intact. She'd have used them to smirk. Until the world broke into pieces and the pieces softened into sludge, Nyane would keep laughing. There wasn't a thing that could be done about it. October Jones had learnt that a long time ago, and McCoy knew it well. Ah, she thought, looking down the scope. What a loathsome world we live in. For the briefest of moments, Nyane was free from both Bastard-born and Unchained. It was enough. A horde of writhing tentacles lunged out from the pale abyss of Ahura Mazda. Oh, shouldn't that be a Z, buddy?
Yeah.
Seizing hold of Mariloco's body and hurling him across the room. A moment later, a hail of jagged javelins zoomed out of the white singularity too. Rufus deflected most of them with his fists, but one slipped through, puncturing his side and pinning him to the wall. Nyane's black haze slid over to regard Ruth, who had just reached the boarding ramp, her battered metal feet buzzing with aether as she pushed them to their limits. She was so close, damn it, she was so close! He smiled. Ahura Mazda. I'm dead. Ruth knew it the same way a cat knew to hide for its final night. Animal instinct forced acceptance into her brain. If she wasn't holding Anatrice, she could have dodged the attack, but she was holding Anatrice, and she couldn't dodge. In the slowest of slow motions, she could see death coming for her, the black blade and chain surging through space, aimed right for her heart. This was it, oh God, this was it! Ruth blinked, slam! But felt no pain. Instead, as she looked up, she found that a shadow had fallen upon her. More than that, there was a shape before her. In the last second, as fast as lightning, something had come between Ruth and the attack, intercepting it. Just like a shield. Blood ran down Rufus von Frostburn's chin as he coughed. The blade of Nyen's weapon was protruding from his chest nearly all the way through. A single glance made it clear this was a fatal wound. Facing away from his enemy, with his arms spread wide, Rufus had taken the blow without a second's hesitation. Ruth blinked, feeling the warm blood that had sprayed onto her face. What? Rufus had taken the killing blow for her? Rufus? But she barely knew him. Hell, she was pretty sure she'd never even spoken to him. Why? She opened her mouth, voice cracking. Why'd you do that? He looked back at her, brow furrowed. Was going to hit you, he said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Oh, it is, isn't it? Nyen pulled the chain free. Within a second, the life of Rufus von Frostburn ended. He collapsed to the floor, his insides torn out of his back and spread across the floor. Nyen looked down at him, bemused. The blade and chain retracted into Angramanyu and was utterly obliterated. That's so strange, Nyen said. I wasn't even aiming for him. What was he thinking? Radiant! Nyen looked up. Almighty! The light slammed into Nyen without any concerns for the environment. If Atoy Muzazi had destroyed the starship in that moment, Ruth sincerely doubted he would care. The full moon stood at the top of the boarding ramp, eyes wide with fury, pouring the attack from his sword into the shadow below. Morgan hung over his shoulder, looking equally shocked. Neither of them had thought things would get so bad while they were starting the takeoff sequence, Ruth realized. This wasn't an enemy they knew. That's pretty bright, Nyen's strained voice trickled out from the center of the aurora. But if it doesn't hit me, it's worthless, right? He'd partially brought out that black shield of his, holding it in front of him like a mockery of Bastardborn as he pushed back against Radiant Almighty. He was slowly advancing upon the ship, but not nearly slowly enough. Raising a hand to shield her eyes, Ruth tried to see if there was any way she could get onto the ship before him. Nothing could be done for Rufus. Ruth's heart sank, but they needed to take off. If they could just get out of here, this nightmare would be over. It would be over before it claimed any more of them. As she kicked off once again, running for the ship, she saw Nyen raise his hand once again in the corner of her vision. Ahura F.A.! Within a second, Nyen disappeared from sight. A shell of purple smoke wrapped around him, holding him in place. Ordinarily, Ruth had no doubt this monster would have been able to break out of Morgan's prison in an instant, but unchained! It wasn't alone. The fog cocoon shrank, compressed to its utmost until Nyen's humanoid form could be discerned through it, slowly but steadily being crushed. The sounds of creaking bones, with other bizarre popping and clicking noises, rang throughout the hangar as Mariloko advanced through the darkness, one hand extended, a grim look on his battered face. His eyes flicked over to Muzazi. Go! He roared, holding Nyen in place, his voice tempered by Aether. In his other hand, he held Bastardborn. He hurled it like a frisbee at the trapped Nyen. The shield pushed into the smoky mass by the manipulated gravity, and as more and more force was continually applied to the shield, Ruth saw it began to glow dangerously. The fog parted and allowed it entry, concealing it from sight. Go! None of them needed to be told a third time. As one, they ran into the ship, and the boarding ram slowly ascended. Ruth took one last look back at the fallen body of Rufus von Frostburn. But nothing could be done for him now. All she could offer was to make sure his sacrifice wasn't in vain. Squeezing her eyes shut, Ruth turned away, and a second later, as the ship was plunged into darkness, she felt the rumble of liftoff. The rumble of Bastardborn came soon after. A volcano of steel and stone erupted in the center of Grip District, and roused by the explosion, the fallen angel rose from the pit. Der Freischütz had done its work well. Even as Praetorian One's body's innate durability had allowed momentary survival, most of it had been destroyed by Johann Blackbird's ability. From the waist down, it was nothing but a smoking bone. It was nothing but smoking bones and scorched sinew, organs oozing out of the angel's open stomach. The right arm was a river of molten fat flowing across the ground, and the left arm twitched and spasmed as it clawed towards the sky. Its head was gone, replaced by a mass of horn-shaped rumors that pushed their way out of its neck. Horn-shaped tumors that pushed their way out of its neck. That it was even still alive was a miracle, and it was not a miracle that would last. She still lost those abilities, though, right?
Yeah.
Good. Within the next 2 minutes, the messenger of Malkuth would expire. It wasn't aware of that, of course. It wasn't truly aware of anything anymore. It was more like a cancer itself now, spreading through the hive of Malkuth, so warped and incoherent that it wasn't even possible to reclaim abilities from it anymore. It let out a low groan that shook the district, like a whale song from hell. Oh, I guess she had to cut it off, or it would have killed them all, right? Because we've seen that happen with Karen's minion.
Well, the Freischütz works a little bit differently from Curse Hand. It wouldn't have... It blows up in a physical sense. It doesn't spread to Aether of the same kind of elsewhere.
I gotcha. It still had a job to do. Even without thought, instinct guided its hand. The dot rising up from the building. The ship, it had to destroy it. Why? It did not know, but it had to destroy it. With a sequence of grotesque clicks, Praetorian 1 forced its remaining hand into a pointing position and began to gather power. Most of its feathers had been destroyed, and many others had become the inferno that now burnt the district around it, but some had been blasted inside one's body by the detonation. 1959, 57... It transferred them into its fingers, preparing a final shot. 1959-58, it followed the distant ship with its pointing finger, and 1959-59, sequence breaker! The man called appointment was always deadly, but the sheer... I assume that's sheer.
Yeah.
But the sheer destruction he was capable of increased as the day went on. In the early hours, he was discriminate as he could be, his sequence breaker like raindrops guided by a surgeon. By the end of the night, though, by the last second, sequence breaker became an attack that could not be survived. A red pillar the size of the skyscraper, I assume a skyscraper, slammed down onto what was left of Praetorian 1, and for a moment, just for a moment, it was visible as a silhouette within the bloody light. Then that silhouette scattered, and when the pillar vanished, not even ashes... Shouldn't it be schedule breaker?
Oh yeah, schedule breaker.
Fraud! I thought you introduced a new technique. Don't forget to change it in the... Yeah. Oh my god, he's washed. He forgot his own attack.
He's got a concussion.
It was visible as a silhouette within the bloody light. Then that silhouette scattered, and when the pillar vanished, not even ashes of its target remained. Praetorian 1 had been vaporized. You should have used that on Nyane, buddy. I guess he doesn't have any stake in that.
Yeah, he's not there.
Old Samuel Seltzman. A final moment of what could have been thought. The bliss of release, the agony of failure, the yearning for honorable approval. Red Aether faded, and in the moment before it did, the Queen sent her messenger off. Aww, it broke. Appointment let out a sigh of relief from deep beneath the rubble. It hadn't been easy hiding while Praetorian 1 was busy fighting everyone else, and even now the flames were beginning to encroach on the safe position he'd found for himself. Wiping the sweat from his brow, he prepared to move out. It was good for his heart that they'd brought Praetorian 1 to the brink of death before he'd had to intervene. It wasn't that he hadn't expected Schedule Breaker to work, but if it hadn't, that definitely would have been a problem. Looking up into the sky, he watched the starship disappear from sight. Ah, he thought. Looks like I won't be getting any bonuses. But still, he smirked. Mission accomplished. Hold on. Huh. Who hired him? What was his mission?
Oh.
Was it to protect Musashi?
You can say.
Oh my god. Did he make money today?
Why would I tell you?
Because I want to know!
You'll find out, surely.
Is he going to show up again even though he doesn't have a power for another year? There's no way. You would never be cool enough to give me that Samuel Seltzman backstory.
Well, if I broke his one rule, he wouldn't be cool anymore, so...
I'll never know. Alright, well thank you all for watching. We have some questions, I believe?
I believe so, yeah.
Wiser asks, what's the difference between El Dorado Seal of Fortune and Seal of Fortune Shangri-La?
Well, you see, one of them is a mistake, and it's now been corrected.
Which one? Which is the correct one?
The correct one is,
It's El Dorado, right?
Yes.
Because that's what he used in 6.
Yes. It's been corrected now. If you check back now.
That's fucked up. Fucked up. This guy does not keep good notes.
Sorry.
How dare you make a mistake?
A simple mistake, and you want to cancel me?
I mean, you did also change...
This is just showing that the lefties are so fucked.
What this tells me is Tanhoney has... I'm going on the
right-wing pipeline because of that now.
Tanhoney has a document where he keeps all his names, but what it tells me is that sometimes he changes those names and he forgets that he changed them, so there's multiple copies
such a document.
Then how do you keep messing up the names?
Well,
or who's who in the family tree of the Grace family?
That was one mistake once, and it was already corrected by the most recent time someone pointed it out, so...
Wiser Than You asks, what does Excel Replicant do, and why is there a different one for each cardinal direction?
So that was an attempt by someone to replicate Excel Surge, to basically just get a power boost on their abilities, but they weren't as good as the Supreme, so they had to split it into 4 abilities that each, boost one of the 4 pillars. So there's one for infusion, one for alteration, one for recording.
But why were they giving cardinal directions instead of that?
Well, it's just good for identification purposes.
Interesting. So PC asks, hope it's not been asked before, but has this concept of superheroes survived, or did the advent of Aether users supplant the idea? With Aether not being very common, maybe some people just see them as supers?
They're kind of like superheroes in the sense of the...
Nobody's saying, like, would people make a superhero comic, or would they just say the Aether
not.
user?
Probably not, yeah. I would say, in terms of my theming, like, as a writer, I do the Nebulas, in my mind, are like a superhero team.
They're the Avengers
exactly,
of the UAP. Yeah. Nebulas assemble.
Exactly, that's what it's like.
Except we lost Rufus.
Yeah,
who's going to replace him?
He was a hero.
Do you think I need a scene of tomfoolery letting out a single tear, and he goes, "This isn't funny anymore."
Well, he doesn't think much as funny. He's a very dour man.
Why is his name Tomfoolery?
That's his name.
And why does he look like a clown?
He's a scurrant.
I just imagine him as a really scary version of Buggy, like if Buggy had aura.
Yeah, he's Buggy if he locked in.
Rockshark asks, if der Freischütz was used on one of Henry's puppets, would that be enough to kill him, or is the Aether sufficiently disconnected from
Like
him?
we mentioned before, so Curse Hand... Actually, Curse Hand might not even work, because he controls their Aether. That's not actually his Aether.
Interesting.
So he's even more broken than I thought he was.
Yeah, he's fucking busted. Lan asks, how did proxy law come to be created, and has any Supreme Heir proxy ever become Supreme?
Yes.
Alright, how did it come
Next
to be
question.
created?
How it came to be created? It was there from the beginning as a just in case, like they were setting up the Dawn contest for the first time.
I guess there's like a world where like your Supreme Heir is like 7.
Exactly.
Right?
Someone brought that up and they're like, "Well, we'll just fucking do this."
Yeah. Imagine just like sending your fucking first grader in the fight. It's like, alright, good luck, buddy.
Coughing baby.
Yeah.
But then the
Just,
first
like,
grader wins, and they're like the Supreme forever.
Yeah. Oh my god. So if the Supreme proxy wins, does the Supreme Heir become the Supreme?
They take the position of Supreme Heir if they're the proxy. It's like handed to them.
Oh, so like they get to go next.
Well,
that's their...
Yeah, so the proxy law is the Supreme Heir going, I am not in a fit state to take part, or whatever. This guy, who I've designated, is now the Supreme Heir instead of me.
Okay.
So that's why Musashi was being a little bit scummy when he did it.
Oh, so like Aklima has no status right now.
Yeah, she's... But at this point she has no status anyway, but yeah.
Yeah, fuck. Lan...
So it's fucked up. Clives was like, he stole my position, then he lost.
Yeah. Weiser asks, is there a lore reason that red and purple Aether seems slightly more common than other shades? I just assume because it's a generic evil color.
Or you saying Roof's evil? Saying Mariloke?
No, but... I mean...
He's gritty, I'll give you that. I like colours red and purple.
Oh, that's cute. Alright.
And of course, yellow is probably... I would say black is the least common, because only one character so far has had black Aether. But then yellow, I would say.
We've seen a ton of blue.
Yeah.
Well, we've seen a lot of yellow.
I would say there's been less yellow than the others.
Well, that's just because you've called it Golden Piss, but we've had Samael, we've had the Scrabble guy, we had, I think one of the people, I think the Sloth user from Arc 5 was yellow, we've had Cadman, we've had the Dinosaur.
I would still say less than the other colours, it has been yellow.
Really? Not white? Only Musazi's had white, as far as I know.
There's been a couple of people with white. Gregory's got white as well.
I thought Gregory had red, you said.
No. I'm pretty sure he has white. Paper white, yeah.
I'm pretty sure you gave him red. Every Cogitant has blue Aether, which is very funny. Is that... Do you have thoughts about that?
I don't know whether that's necessarily true.
Every Kagi that you've written that's been an Aether user has used blue Aether.
I don't think so.
Dragon and Noel. Name a Kagi that doesn't have blue Aether.
I don't think John Lyons had blue Aether. Did he?
Yeah, he did.
Did
Yeah.
he?
Yep.
I don't believe you.
Look it up.
Where would I look it up?
Go back to Arc 9.
I don't think...
And read his fight with Musashi.
It says Aether colour unknown on the Aetheral Space wiki, but I'm pretty sure at some point you did use it. I'm pretty sure at some point I would have described it.
I don't think you did, but I think it was blue.
So if I didn't describe it, then it's automatically blue?
Well, every other Cogitant has been. Name one Cogitant that doesn't have blue Aether.
I don't feel like it.
Yes! Fraud.
How am I a fraud? I just don't feel like I'm tired. I've been writing.
Oh, yeah, it's hard.
I write all
right,
day and all night.
Oh my god, you're literally a hero.
I know.
Alright, well, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.